Hello and welcome to this month's Talking Tactics. I'm one third of your host, David Polikoff. In the center, we have RJ. I don't know where it's going to end up when this thing gets in post, but right now he's in the center. And to my right, Sam Villani. Guys, welcome back to the show. Good to see you guys again. It seems like the only time we really get together is doing the show. I'm going to have to tiptoe 10 minutes down the road to come see you, Sam. And
yeah, man.
I'll see you tomorrow, RJ, for a fresh cup of coffee.
I'll be there. Come on.
So,
well, this is what old men do these days. We're busy with family shit and work, and we commiserate online.
But it's the summertime, so it's also the vacations and stuff like that. You just got back from vacation. I got back a couple weeks ago. I know, RJ, you were down in – I don't say down. You were over in Butler County, Pennsylvania. Yep. Doing the thickest thing. So I'm not going to sit here and ramble. I know you have a pretty good topic that coincides with leadership training as well as the Key City Fire Conference coming up. So we're going to do a shameless plug for that. But so RJ, take it away. Let's start off with Butler and how that went and some of the things that you saw there.
Really cool, man. We were up there with a bunch of guys, instructors from all over the country. That was the Jimmy Ellis Memorial training, which Jimmy Ellis was a career fireman in Pittsburgh, and then he was a volunteer firefighter at the Adams area Station 42, which, by the way, if you guys ever get a chance to go see that firehouse, it is a fireman's dream. As I understand, I think Jimmy Ellis had a big hand in designing that firehouse, which everybody knows he's a big, he was a big national instructor, taught at FDIC, taught all over the country, was a big trainer. And so he designed the firehouse to have all kind of training aspects inside of the firehouse, which is amazing. These guys have, imagine taking the high bay of Montgomery County and making that an engine bay. That's what it looked like. They can put the aerial up to windows inside the engine bay. They can break out windows. They can rappel. They can do bailouts. They can throw ladders inside of the firehouse.
Is that the firehouse that we drive by on the way to the college when we taught there? The big red-looking firehouse?
On the right, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That thing's like a big Taj Mahal.
Finally was driving past it, and I went, I need to go check this place out. And I shit you not, they have a firehouse dog, and they because they can't have a pole, they have a slide. They have a slide from the second floor to the first, and the dog knows how to kick the slide down. Dude, I was standing there, and this dog came popping out the slide, and I was like, "You gotta be shitting me!"
That's awesome.
But yeah, the firehouse, it was amazing, and then nonetheless, the hospitality was great. They gave me a tour. Man, they didn't want to let me leave. But, the coolest thing was being there to honor him through the training, seeing all of the other guys that we all teach with from fire engineering and FDIC. And it was just cool to all be in the same area. So, yeah, it was, obviously a training they do every year to commemorate Jimmy Ellis. But those guys do a really good job putting that show on. And for anybody listening, you ever get a chance to go and take classes there, it's well worth it, worth every $1. So, yeah, it was good.
That's good to like I said, we drove by when we went by last year, and it just the huge Taj Mahal firehouse. So how'd the training go? It looked. I saw your video clips and your pictures. It looked like it was pretty full house, which is good.
Yeah,
good
packed class both days. It was a little on the warm side. Not as hot as it was last year, but still hot nonetheless. But great students. The students on our first day we were supposed to be done by 5, and they just were just so into it. They asked if we didn't mind staying a little bit later with them, and they wanted more. We stayed till 6 o'clock. They got extra reps and just wanted to they weren't ready to shut it off yet. And stuff like that drives us, as instructors, when people are into it like that. You don't really want to let them walk away feeling either unaccomplished or not getting enough. So, we stayed till 6 o'clock getting it in with them. And, the next day again, another wave of students come, and, it was really, really cool to see that the energy that people put into to learning. And, at the same time, a lot of the students all realize what they're there for, and that same energy that Jimmy Ellis had, they try to, kind of duplicate that and have the same passion. So, they're working in overtime pretty much, to try to honor. So really, really good program. I could not stress enough those guys and girls that put that conference on. But yeah, absolutely.
That's good stuff. I know that's a testament to the students that wanted, even because it was hot. I mean, last year it was hot, so it was hot this year for you guys, and that they wanted to stay and continue to get some reps into it, forcing doors and tools and stuff like that. So kudos to those guys that are laying out their own money to come training for a great cause, and then want to stay longer, absorb as much information as they can, get that really good face time for the instructors. So, it's an honor to be asked, from Capitol Fire to be able to come down there and
big time.
Do that stuff. And even the stuff that we do in Delaware for this memorial, the Ficus Memorial. So it's an honor. So kudos to you, RJ. It was good stuff. I'm glad that we got to, you got to participate in that. So let's move forward a little bit. Let's talk about the meat of what we wanted to talk about. You said you wanted to get into a little bit of the goods, the bads, and the uglies of leadership and whatnot. So take it away.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be pretty cool. Excuse me. I thought it'd be pretty cool tonight to talk about leadership. I know leadership. I feel like leadership is just a trending topic right now. I feel like maybe 5, 6, 8 months ago it was search. Now we're in the leadership. A few months ago, nobody would stop talking about search, and every trainer group was talking about search. And now you get on social media, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, and you see everybody's got stuff they want to say about leadership, and everybody has thoughts about leadership. And I thought it would be a good topic to talk about tonight was leadership. And I thought that it would be good that we put our own selves out there to talk about us as leaders. I view all of us as leaders, fire service leaders. And so a couple of things I wanted to talk about tonight is when we identified we wanted to be leaders in our organizations, and what we did to prepare ourselves to be leaders. And then most importantly, what little things do we do as leaders? Yesterday we were meeting the conference committee for the Key City Fire Conference. We were meeting to go through proposals, and we laid out over 100, close to 120 different presentations that instructors from all over the country submitted. And as we were going through them, we categorized them. We had engine, truck, rescue, rate mayday, leadership, miscellaneous. Our engine stack was like this. Our truck stack was like this. Our rescue stack was like this. Miscellaneous was like this. And leadership was like this. And so I thought it was pretty interesting when you look at them across the table. Everybody wants to talk about leadership. And, even in our own department, we have a department of 600 something people. People progress. They want to become officers, or they want to be technicians or captains, battalion chiefs, so on and so forth. What are the things that make people want to do that? So I think tonight would be a good topic to talk about leadership. And what I want to do is just kind of pick you guys' brain a little bit and myself share my thoughts about, when did we realize that the fire service needed leadership so bad that we're willing to kind of make that be the priority? And maybe it's just a trend right now. Who knows, But I'll throw it to you, Dave, first. And I would love to hear your thoughts. When did you, Dave, determine that you wanted to be a leader within the organization, your organization, when you started in Montgomery County? And what did you do to prepare for it? I think if we all hit that, I think that'll be good for those listening who are on the younger side, maybe guys and girls who are just getting in the fire department who may need to hear from us. If they have that inspiration or aspiration to be a leader, what things do they need to be doing now to prepare for that? So I'll throw it to you first. When did you realize that you wanted to be a leader within your organization?
When I got hired in Montgomery, I was back when the we weren't even a county organization yet. We were being hired by the corporations. So I got hired at the Silver Spring Fire Department, and I was 18 years old. Again, I've told the story 1,000 times. I'm just very fortunate that I got hired at such a young age. when the fire chief that hired me, John Grover, he was the chief of Silver Spring, went on to be our first director. He had said, hey, what are your aspirations, with Silver Spring Fire? I was like an 18-year-old kid. All I wanted to do was sign on the paper, tell me what shift I'm going to be working on so I can go to work. And he's like, before he signed the papers, he said, tell me a little bit about where you want to be in the fire department. What do you want to do? And at the time, our ranks were sergeant, lieutenant, and then captains were basically the chiefs. They were the station commanders, but they rode. They weren't on the floor. So my ambition was always to be a lieutenant. I'd have my own shift, and at a very young age, I wanted to be a lieutenant. That's as far as I wanted to go. So as we fast forward, the county took over. They restructured a lot of the ranks. They got rid of the sergeant's position. They ended up making a district chief, which eventually became a battalion chief, in that particular position. And then they put the captains in the stations. So now you had lieutenants and captains. So then my goal was to be a captain, have my own shift, preferably on a truck company. So that's what I worked towards. Took all the classes and whatnot. And I had just phenomenal mentors, firefighters, lieutenants, captains, chiefs that were just in my corner, being young. And as Sam said 1,000 times, it's okay to be in the job. I mean, we were sick into the job and, on and off duty, but they knew I was really gung-ho about it. I was young, I was hyper. And so the first time I got to sit for a promotional exam was for technician or master firefighter. Didn't have enough time to be a lieutenant. Took the test, was scored, qualified on the list. I eventually got promoted. It took about a year, but I progressed through the ranks up to captain. Ultimately, as you know, I became a battalion chief. But the one thing that I want to pass on to the people that are listening is that it's great to have ambition, that you have vision, that you want to get promoted. The problem that I see, and maybe Sam can shed some light on this also, is these guys want to promote really fast. They want that position really fast. And I've said it 1,000 times, this is the best job in the world, hands down. Just relish in the job. Take every aspect of the job you can. Don't be in such a hurry to move forward. That position will always be there. So I stress to the younger people, take some time in the positions to learn the job. There's more to the job than just making sure your uniform's good, making sure that you're showing up on time and you're running calls and knowing your skills. There's so much more to the job to learn that you should spend time in ranks. Now, I spent 7 years as a firefighter before I took the test for master. I spent 5 years as a master, even though I only had to do one before I could sit the lieutenant's test, before I took the lieutenant's exam. And then I think I was a lieutenant for about 5 years before I became a captain. And then I spent 9 years as a captain. In that time between master and lieutenant, I just had some really good mentors, and I had a good shift. I didn't want to leave because I was learning so much. So that's the takeaway: is it's great to have the ambition, the drive, get the training that you need, learn the job, learn the craft, spend some time in each rank. And you will find that as you progress through lieutenant, you spend time in there, then to captain, spend time in there before you become a chief, the job is going to be easier for you as you move forward. You'll gain that experience on the floor of administrative issues. And let's face it, we're firemen. We get ourselves in some dumb situations because we're constantly doing dumb shit. But learning how to navigate that administrative stuff is just going to pay dividends in the long run. So stay in the job. Stay in those positions, learn each position before you move forward. You promote too fast, you're not going to learn the position. And as you take the next promotion, you're still trying to learn the last one. And it shows. But I'll kick it back to you, RJ, and go from there.
Can you hear me? Is my mic?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so that's what I think we need to shed some on tonight, because I think people need to understand, and I think that a lot of people don't realize what kind of responsibility comes with leadership. How we as leaders, whether we're technicians, whether we're lieutenants, captains, battalion chiefs, what kind of responsibility we have. And now we are signing our names to take on when we decide that we want to be an officer. And sometimes I think people forget about that aspect of it. I think people look at, a lot of different things, right? I now don't have to ride the ambulance, or I now don't have to do as much housework, or I don't have to do. I think people look at the what I don't have to do's anymore versus the what I have to do's. And I think the what I have to do list is actually smaller than what I don't have to do. But the have to do list is really important, right? Like, I have to make sure these people get paid, right? I have to make sure that I'm available for them 24/7, 365. Whether I'm with my family, my phone still has to be on because I have to be available. I don't think sometimes people realize, though, the I have to's list versus the I don't have to's, But I'll throw it to Sam. Same question. When did you realize that you wanted to be a leader within the organization, and what did you do to prepare for it? To be one.
Well,
I'm telling you, this is mind-boggling, right? When you think about it like this, right? Like when you go, you have to literally go back in time to think about shit. When was it that when it actually hit me?
Well, I didn't start thinking about this topic until about 5 minutes ago. I was in my head, and I wanted to bring this up before I go into the other thing. You think about all these leadership classes, leadership. We have a young department across the country. We have a young fire department that didn't have as much of an opportunity to watch people lead on the fire ground as we did, because we're spread out. We're getting busier. It is, we're not running significantly less fires. We're running less fires. With a young department, you're going to have less of an opportunity to have that officer to emulate, right, all the time, because you're busy on the EMS unit or doing whatever you do that's not, if you're married to a fire truck your entire career, then you've got a leg up, right? Because you have that 24/7. You're not just getting into the station and on calls that you run with the officer that maybe is your mentor. You're getting them all the time. But so I think that's a big part of it. And I think these young guys they're thirsting for leadership advice because they're not getting it enough in the firehouse, and that's nobody's fault. Look, it's just generational. The generation that preceded us had beef with how we were coming up, and vice versa. Look, everything changes, right? It's like the FDNY Warrior stuff. These guys that get in on the 80s, and the guys are like, you should have been here 10 years ago. It doesn't stay the same. It's almost like, as a leader, you've got to figure out how to motivate and how to get that stuff through to the way they learn too. That's another big challenge is with this young fire department. They want to satiate that quench for leadership knowledge, but we got to figure it out how to best deliver it to them so we don't lose them in the sauce, right? And death by PowerPoint definitely is not one of the ways. I think what we do a lot with the practical stuff where the rubber hits the road, and certainly with our command stuff, getting the sets and reps in with the command board and the tactical worksheet and all that stuff, it's huge, right? So anyway, I digress, but I can tell you coming up as a firefighter, you latch on to your mentors early, and then you end up at a different place in your career or a different assignment. And now you see, so for me, initially it was a master firefighter. I'm like, I want to be that guy that drives a rig and runs the floor. That person seems to has the most respect in the firehouse, knows the most, is the coolest, because the cool factor has always been something for me. I wanted to be able to be cool and still, I didn't know if I could be me as a lieutenant or captain, but as it turns out, first it was, I wanted to be a master. Then I went to another firehouse where I had this tremendous lieutenant, Kenny O'Leary. I wanted to be a lieutenant, and I became a lieutenant. And then I saw captains who, Dave Polikoff being one of them. I'm like, man, that guy really runs a tight ship at his firehouse. I like the way he trains his people. He's got a checkout process for the tower. Like everything you were doing there, I was listening to that, and I'm like, I want to be able to do that with a shift. So, you kind of leapfrog. The mentors that you had when you first start out are still there, but you're aiming your focus, the mentor that's where you want to be, not where you've been. So I've just been very, like Dave said, I was very fortunate to get to places where the person a rank above me was doing this exceptional stuff. and I was attracted to it. And I was like, I know I can do that. And then, you run calls as a firefighter, and you see some of these folks that, they're, a lot of them have since retired, but I'm like, I could do a better job than that guy standing on my head. And I don't know any of what he knows,
Yeah.
So
no, it's funny you say that, right? Because I think a lot of times we all see the goods, right? And a lot of times, even us, right? We talk about the good leaders we had. I can tell you my own experience. I had no intentions on being a leader. I was living in a firehouse. I was a backstep guy, and I had no intentions on it. But, living in a firehouse, what happens is you get stuck in that role of the guy who has to make staffing work, or the guy who has to make calls work, or whatever. I mean, my first time riding the front seat of the fire truck was on a Saturday. We were short-staffed. They woke me up and tell me, we got to go on this box, and you're riding the front seat. I got us lost as shit. I had no idea. We were the last one to a working fire in this area, right? I had no intentions of being a leader, but when I found myself thrown in this position, I realized people were looking up to me to get stuff done. So I needed to then start learning how to be a leader. I grew up in the fire service. I mean, I'm not a stranger to the fire service, but my dad was a backstep fireman for 30-something years. And, within a leader, a senior man within the company, for sure. But it took me having to be thrown in the role to realize I had to step up into the role. And then when I became a career fireman, man, I'll tell you, my first officer was terrible. And I knew that when I got a shift, when I got a company, when I got a group, at some point in time in my career, I do want to be an officer. I knew that for a fact. And I knew that in order for me to be an officer, I needed to spend my earlier years building my credibility as a person to be able to be a guy that was trusted. And I think that's one of the things that I want to hit on the most is if you have an inclining that you want to be a leader in your department. And most people, I think, eventually want to be one. And then even if you're not a lieutenant, a captain, a battalion chief, a senior guy is still a leader within a company or shift. You got to start doing some earlier work, right? So you got to start being a guy or girl that is putting forth the effort, leading in the firehouse, doing things, stepping up to do house chores, teaching drills. Not necessarily do you have to be on a national platform, but teaching people your knowledge and sharing what experience you have within your company. Those are all traits of being a leader. Many times, and I know we've all seen it, where we see somebody who slacks for many years in their career, and then all of a sudden they want to promote. And then when they promote, it's like they want to flip the script. And now you want to be an instructor, you want to be training, you want to do all these things. And it's hard to regain street cred because you spent many years not gaining anything. And so one of my biggest things where I'm going with that is to say to those who are listening that, if you have a thought that you want to be an officer, you need to be working on that now. There's always things that we can take from good leaders, and there's always things that we could take from bad leaders, right? But preparing yourself for that, I think is huge. And so, I think it's funny that like we all have these different time frames and where it hit us where we wanted to be. And I think that those listening can kind of attach themselves to the three different views here, right? So, what do you think is driving people to want to be leaders? Why is the stack of leadership presentations like this where all the tactics are down? What do you think is driving people to want to be leaders?
I think it's I'll start it off and then you can springboard, Dave. I think it goes back to we have a young department. We have very junior members who when I went through taking the promotional exams, they were shorter lists, and now the lists are full. They're big lists. We fill a full list up for officer and certainly for master firefighter vacancies. The baby boomer generation is retired. The people behind them are starting to retire. My generation's starting to retire. And, that happened, as you very well know, it happens in a blink of an eye where you're like, oh crap, I'm a senior person in this organization. But Yeah, I think that's where it starts for sure.
Dave, what about you?
I think the reason why leadership is coming out now is because you're hearing a lot of it. I think it's going to go back to, I'd say, look, we had 20 years of war, right? We were, before 9/11, it had, the Desert Storm and whatnot, a very, very quick battle. But after 9/11 in 2003, when Afghanistan and all that kicked off, that was 20 years of war. And the military guys brought back the things that they learned. They had to learn a lot on the fly. And they brought some solid leadership traits back of leading people literally with people shooting at them. We run into burning buildings and people think that's crazy. These dudes are running into people shooting guns and shit at them. I think that's crazy. But those guys came back with a lot of really good leadership lessons on how to lead just a ragtag group of people for a common goal. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of leadership stuff popping up now, is because, let's be honest, it was lacking in the fire service. I got no leadership training from going from firefighter to master, and then from master to lieutenant to captain. I got nothing other than the classes that we took at the training academy. The most leadership training I ever got was going from captain to battalion chief, and that was a 5-day class. And 3 of those days were, this is the battalion vehicle, and here's where the secret envelope is. It has money and 7-Eleven gift cards and shit like that in it. And this is where you go get gas and all that.
I give that lecture to the bubble class.
The shameful thing is that was the best leadership training that I ever got. We didn't have officer candidate school, and then they started that process, and it was very small. Now it's pretty robust in Montgomery County. They actually have something that's pretty robust in Frederick. Say what you want about Frederick being country station or whatever. They handle the leadership portion. They're preparing their officers to be officers. They're preparing their chiefs to be chiefs. Same thing on the volunteer side. You may not run a ton of calls, but the heart is there that they want to make sure that when they're running calls, they're able to do the job for their community. And the training is very close. The career and the volunteer training in Frederick is very close. So they're being trained the same way. But leadership has just been something that's been really lacking in the fire service. And I can tell you, I've never, with the exception of Frank Ritchie's book, I've never picked up a leadership book from the fire service and read it from cover to cover. A lot of military leadership books that I've read, but to me, it was always subjective. Hey, this guy up here in the upper Northeast, in Maine, this is how they run a fireground. This is how they run a fireground in Florida, or Texas, or whatever. The Mid-Atlantic area, that's the largest combination systems in the country. And we do things differently in the Mid-Atlantic than they do in the Northeast, than they do in the South or in the West, or even on the West Coast. So it's very subjective. So what might work for you in Connecticut or in Boston or even in New York, it's not going to work for us here in Montgomery or in Frederick. So it was very difficult. I really latched on to the NIMS stuff. I'm not trying to be a nerd, but when we ended up doing we had to do the 1, 2, 7, 800 series.
Nerd.
I didn't say an FPA. So when we got that 200 and 300, and it was expanded for large incidents and everything, that's where my aha moment came. And this is right when I was getting ready to go from captain to battalion chief, that here's something that's taught the same from coast to coast. And it's the only thing in the fire service that we have that is the same. Our Fire 1 class in Maryland is probably vastly different than the Fire 1 class in California. But NIMS is the same. And I really locked on to the command stuff and how we run command. And then with that came decision-making and, the types of decision-making that we do, whether it's the rapid prime decision-making or that long-term strategic decision-making, like buying a fire engine or something like that. There's a lot of science behind that. And I think we're just now getting into it. And I think a lot of people now are having that aha moment of there's a lot that we can be putting forward for leadership in the fire service. You can listen to lots of podcasts put on by military guys, and about 80% of what they're talking about translates into the fire service. So I think that's why we're seeing such an uptick in leadership, because it was something that was lacking. But 20 years of war, bringing this back full circle, really honed how to lead people into battle, figuratively in the military and, symbolically in the fire service.
I want to tag on that subjective thing, because I think that's kind of how I feel. And so this is what I was thinking, man. I've been actually thinking about this since yesterday, right? Think about where the fire service has gone as it relates to instructors, right? People actually sharing knowledge and experience that they have over the years of firefighting, right? Back when I got in the fire service back in 2003, all of the instructors, hell, Dave, you was one of my instructors, right? So a lot of the instructors then had a lot of experience. When you look at instructors now, a lot of instructors are younger, right? A lot of instructors may not necessarily have a lot of experience. And I think that it's my own personal belief that a lot of people want to be instructors. I think the fire service has made instructing really cool, right? There's a lot of good instructors, a lot of good firefighters who have great ways of delivering messages, right? I think in the instructor world, we made firefighting instructing look cool. I think that
we make it look cool.
We do. We do. But check this out, right? Tell me what you think about this. I think that the reason why we see more leadership topics coming to light is I feel like that is the one subject you really can't push back on, right? So put in perspective, right? You want to do a class on engine company operations, right? I can argue with you all day long that this nozzle is a better nozzle than the one you're telling me is I should have, right? Or this tactic Sam's trying to tell me that vertical ventilation over a second floor bedroom is worthy and necessary, and I could push back on that and say no. I can argue that it's not, right? So tactics are something that you can really push back on, and I feel like leadership is a topic you really can't push back on unless you just blatantly have bad leaders or bad leadership conversations. I think when you say subjective, I really agree with that. It is very subjective, right? How Dave runs a firehouse is different how Sam runs a firehouse versus how RJ runs a firehouse. No three opinions are the same. But who's going to push back on the fact that that's how Dave runs a firehouse and Dave's a good guy and it must be right? Or who's going to push back on Sam saying, no, this is how I ran a firehouse and it must be right. It can't be wrong, right? So I feel like when you actually said that it's subjective, I 100% agree with it. And I feel like that's the reason why. But I will say we have to really be careful as a fire service with that because, there are times where people are getting into leadership roles. And like I said before, not really understanding what they're getting into, right? So, which takes me down this next road, and I'll throw it to Sam first. What are some key responsibilities that you feel are important for those listening that they need to have as an officer? Key responsibilities, like things that you gotta have, you need to, if you don't have, you better figure out how to get them if you want to be in charge of people in the fire service.
Oh man, that's a big one. Wow.
I know this will be a good one for Sam because Sam, you are the perfect person to answer this because when it comes to being an officer, right? Remember, many times I had to be like, Sam, your personality is just. Sometimes people forget you're a captain. Sometimes people forget you're a battalion chief because of your personality. You know what I mean?
That
so I think
happens.
this I can't wait. I can't wait to hear this.
One, you have to be your genuine. You have to be your genuine self. You have to be your genuine self. You can't go in there and the whole fake it till you make it. we used to joke about that, but man, these young folks can smell it if you're not genuine. And that's one thing people, it used to be like, so only certain people were like good judges of character, but it seems like these days, I guess because everybody's so dialed in with everybody else's stuff that, if you're not 100% genuine and go in there, and when you don't know it, be honest about it. Engage your folks you have to be an empath too, right? And I say engage your folks. That whole thing, it's like, hey, you see, Johnny over here, his behavior's changed. Stuff's not going on great at work or whatever. You pull him in the office, that whole, hey, what's going on? That has to happen organically. And your people have to know that you're accessible, and not just during the time that you're at the firehouse. I can tell you, it's being a leader in the fire service is the most selfless thing I've done, and in my entire life, and it's probably the only thing that's can cause consternation in my family dynamic, because sometimes the fire service really, really, really needs you. Sometimes somebody in your shift is going through a really hard thing. They really, really need you. You got to find that balance at home while you're doing this stuff, but you cannot dial back being accessible and being genuine. You've got to, and you've got to be willing to do it. I'll give you a silly example. That whole, if you're a leader and you're telling your folks to do it, you've got to be able to do it. And it's got to be something you're comfortable with. Well, I wanted to demonstrate to my shift when I got to one engine that I cared about them deeply, even though I knew most of them, but not to that level yet. But I cared about them deeply enough. They needed to know. We ran a tree on a house. The house was unstable. We weren't 100% sure if there was somebody in there or not. I held my folks out at the door, and I went in and did a quick search, because I was like, if I send somebody in here and this thing collapses on their head, I'll never forgive myself, But I also wanted to show them, look, man, I'm willing to put myself in a bad spot. You saw it firsthand. If I ask you to get in if it's to go into a bad spot, I'm not going to be standing behind you or pointing. I'm going to be right there with you, and know that sometimes I'm going to ask you to do stuff that's you're probably going to look at and be like, well, we're not going to be able to do that. Trust me, And again, you have to demonstrate that the actions to get the trust. But be genuine. Be your genuine self, and don't. If you don't know, you pull out the firehouse and you take you shit the bed in the mats. Be honest about it. Have the conversation right when you become a company officer. Once you get, you feel your folks out. It's like I told my folks on day one, if you see something that I don't see, when we're pulling to the block at 2 a.m., you better tell me. I really want to hear from you, because, historically you just did what the officer told you. It's regardless of what was going on. Even if you saw something completely different and you went to say something, it was a big deal. Like, you had to be like, there was the whole, you were given an order and now a chief gives you an order. What do you do? And everybody used to get freaked out about it. But you've got to really implement crew resource management into your leadership style. Your people have to know that that you're comfortable enough with them and they're comfortable enough with you that they're going to say something that potentially could change the outcome of a call, could change the outcome of where, anything. They see a car coming up and you don't see it or whatever, You have to be your genuine self and make sure that they have input in everything. And I'm telling you, they'll follow you anywhere, and you can, makes you feel pretty good as a leader too.
What about you, Dave? I knew that was going to be Sam. I knew that was exactly what it was going to be.
Even as a battalion,
and you are. You've always been.
Look, if they cross one more bugle, man, I'll lose a sense of myself. I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding. But I would have to mature a little bit if I became an assistant chief. I'm not sure I could do that.
What do you think are key responsibilities as an officer, as a leader?
I think when you start off, as a line officer and a lieutenant or captain, I was writing some stuff down because if I don't, I forget. But the number one thing is humility. You need to be humble to the point that when you make a mistake, you own it. hey, I made a mistake. And this is how we're going to learn from that. But you also need to make sure that if your guys make a mistake, providing it wasn't egregious, you tell them it's okay. We're going to learn from this. And then we move forward. So that way they're not going to be afraid. Because the moment you start hammering your guys for making mistakes, that's when they stop making decisions. That's when they're going to wait for you to make the decision for them. And then we have a bunch of people that aren't doing stuff that they're supposed to be on the fireground. The other part that we have that I'm learning, now in the position that I'm in is to learn to let go of stuff. And what I mean by that is you don't have to do everything. There are smart, talented people that are on your shift, that are in your battalion, that you don't have to just do everything. You can farm it out to some of those people. Let them take the project. Let them take the reins. And the buy-in that you'll get when that end product is done, you don't have to convince them to like it because they're the ones that developed it and they're going to love it. So you don't have to do everything. Be accountable for yourself as well as for your people. Making sure that they're doing the right thing. Like one of the things Sam touched on is the training. You should be the first one in line to do whatever it is that you're doing. Tommy Coe's that way. He wants to be the first person to do WPE or WEP, whatever it's called, in Frederick. He wants to be the first one to go through command comps. He wants to be the first one that when we're doing the moto training, he's the first one. He's leading from the front. And I think that's important. Everybody needs to see that, just because I have a white shirt on or just because I have captain bars or lieutenant bars, I'm there with you. I'm doing that stuff. Courage. You need to be able to stand up for something, stand up for your guys when they're right, even when they're wrong. You stand up for them and you take the brunt. Have the courage to speak up when something's not right. Have the courage to speak up when something's not right with a person or something's going on, and you got to defend them as an officer. Have the courage to say, hey, we're going in the wrong direction and we need to change course and lay it out there. Just don't let things go as far as if something's wrong, you need to have the courage to step up and say, this isn't right and here's why. One of the things that Sam touched on, be present with your guys. Don't lock yourself in your office. If you're a captain or a lieutenant, man, that paperwork will be there at 1 o'clock in the morning. Sam will tell you, or even you, RJ, there's many times we don't go to bed till 11, 12 o'clock at night when I was an officer.
I'm the last one to go to bed.
Because I wanted to be there for my guys. If we're sitting at the table, I don't care if you bring your own dinner in, you're still sitting at the table eating with the guys. If you're doing breakfast, you eat breakfast, lunch, watching a movie, whatever it is, you be there with the guys. And then you can go and do your paperwork, when there's a lull. And then the final thing is trust. One of the things that you touched on, Sam. That's the easiest thing to lose and the hardest thing to get and gain back is trust. And from the line officer side, trust comes to the point where you're there for your guys and you prove that you're there. Trust from the command officer standpoint is, I trust that you guys know your job and you're going to do your job, so I don't have to question everything that you're doing because I trust you. If I don't trust you, then I'm micromanaging you, and somebody needs to ask the question, why are you doing that? What have I done to not earn your trust? So those are the biggest things, and those are things that you just can't, and it goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning. You just can't blast through these ranks without ever gaining any of those leadership traits. It's something that you learn along the way from good officers and from bad officers. And once you start developing that, and once you start getting a good reputation, then as you start to promote, you'll find that you're getting good assignments and people are going to want to work for you. And, that's not it in a nutshell. There's so much more to it, but those are the starts. That's where you got to start.
No, I agree. And it's funny that I had made some notes, and some of the words that I highlighted were some of the same words you guys used. Trust. And I wanted to actually talk about trustworthy, accountability. So, and I feel like as an officer, I feel like some of the key responsibilities as an officer, as a leader, and I'll tag on to your trust, but I had wrote down trustworthy, right? there's a lot of trust that goes both ways as an officer, whether I have to entrust in the guys that I have and them trusting in me. There is a lot of times, and I have a fantastic group of guys. There's times where I'm like, man, I told these guys we got to get something done, and I got to go get on them because, 2 hours ago it wasn't done, and I go to say something and it's done. You know what I mean? And so like I have to remind myself, man, just trust that these guys will get it done, and they will. They really will. But also with that building trust, right? There comes a time where, as a new officer, as a new leader, you have to take time to build trust. That call that Sam was talking about, I'm constantly doing things like that with training. I'm out going to do training with the guys in the company, and I strap up and I put my stuff on and I'm doing it with them. I have a rule that if you don't have on the same gear that the people who are training have on, you don't have an opinion, right? So I feel like when I put my stuff on and I'm in the mix with them and doing the stuff with them, they're building trust within me and I'm building trust with them, right? They know my moves. They know how I'm going to move. They know where I'm going to be. They know what I'm doing. And we're figuring this out together. And every time we train, we're figuring out something together. And I think that's a good way to build trust. I literally wrote down availability. We as officers, our phones are never off. And sometimes it's one of those things where we have to be able to navigate the fire department from home sometimes. There's this thing in the fire service right now, when you're working, you're working, when you're off, you're off. And some people like to take a break from the firehouse. But I feel as a boss, I'm not off. I can't be off. I have to be available to whatever any of these guys need. If somebody gets hurt, somebody gets in a car accident, somebody's family member dies, I got to be able to answer the phone when they call, because I'm the guy who they're going to call, and I need to show that I'm there for them. At least be able to get things in motion and be able to help facilitate the needs and all that kind of things. There is nobody else that I shouldn't say there isn't anybody else, but the first person that they're going to turn to all the time is their immediate leader, their officer. And imagine being a guy who you call your boss and he don't answer the phone and he's not available, or you call him multiple times, he's not available. Even if I go out of town, I tell my guys, hey guys, I'm going to be out of town teaching this weekend. I got my laptop if you need something. If there's a scheduling issue, if there's anything that you need, I got you. Just let me know and I get you straight. And I just feel like I have to be available for them. And also with that being said, not just them, their families, right? If their family needs something, if something goes down with them, right, their family is going to contact me. I have in my filing cabinet at the firehouse, I have all of their personal information, their name, their address, their wife's name, their kids' names, all of their things. That's not anything that the department makes us do, because I feel like I have to be able to be available to help them, or them be available, or them being able to reach out to me if need be. My last two things that I think are key responsibilities as an officer I wanted to touch on was empower, right? And I think that it's important that new people who are leaders or want to be leaders understand the value of empowering people. When you take a person and you put them in a position to be able to be in charge, even if they're not in charge, to be able to say, hey, I trust you to go ahead, you run the lineup today, or you make the riding assignments. Hey, you run the drill. You know what I mean? You show these guys that you have, again, I feel like some of these kind of coincide with each other and clash with each other. But now it's showing that person that I trust you to do this, but I'm also lifting you up. I think that, when I first got to one, the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted the company to be seen. I wanted all three shifts to be seen. I wanted guys and all across the world to know that these guys here are working. These guys are training. These guys are friendly. These guys are fun. These guys are doing the job. And these are guys that, are people you can rely on or trust on when you call for them. But with that being said, I have to empower them. I have to lift them up to say, hey man, this is you. I want you to do this. I want you to take on this role and run with this. And the last thing is, and both of you guys have said it, and I'll double down or triple down on it, accountable, right? You got to be accountable for the mistakes. You got to be accountable for the good and the bads. If the guys do good, it's on them, right? I had no part of it. I'm just the guy who got them here, and then how they managed it was completely on them. But when they do bad, that's on me, right? That's on me, and it's never on them unless it's something that's just so egregious. But when they make a mistake, that's on me, because one of the reasons they made a mistake, I failed to either have us prepared for it, or I failed to teach what we needed to do to address this situation, or maybe there was a misunderstanding in communication and I didn't explain well. So being able to stand in the forefront for the bad things versus the good things, I think is something that all leaders should be prepared to do. We had a fire just 2 tours ago, small fire, right? And it was something so small. But what ended up happening was our hose line got caught underneath the door. My chauffeur charged it, and what ended up happening was when the guy took the line up the stairs, it just shifted just slightly under the door. There's a commercial storefront door. When he charged it, it went through the hose, but it actually expanded the hose. We got water, no problem. But there was just that little bit of the door that was crimping the hose. After we talked about it, I thought about it. I came back the next tour. I said, guys, you know what? I messed up. I should have caught that. I was the one who was following behind you guys. I should have chalked that door. I should have caught it. In the meantime, I own that one now, so that this doesn't happen again. Here's a box of door chalks. Everybody take 3. But that one was on me. You know what I mean? I should have caught it. How many officers, how many people who want to be leaders or aspiring leaders know that they have to eat that one, right? I could have easily said, hey, man, you messed up. You let that hose get onto the door, right? But, at the end of the day, it makes you a better person and builds all of these things, being able to be trustworthy, being able to be available, empower people, and accountable to all of these actions. That's what I think makes and builds a good leader. And so I really hope that anybody listening tonight enjoyed this. I personally did, because as long as we've all been friends, I've never heard any of you guys' take on when you decided you wanted to be a leader and the things that make good leaders. And I think as we hit that mark, we'll wrap it up by going around and just saying what advice you would give to aspiring leaders. And I'll kick it back to Sam first. What advice would you give those listening to be aspiring leaders, to be prepared to be leaders, if you would?
Well, you're already doing a lion's share of it by tuning in. If you're listening to this, then you're into this thing, and keep doing it. It's infectious. The folks around you maybe that don't have it yet, if you go in with a positive mental attitude and get there early, hit the road running, have fun. Make sure you're having fun. Don't take it too far. These days, have fun without hurting somebody's feelings too much. But yeah, just go in there and be what you're already doing. I hate to say student of the game. No, I don't hate to say it. I don't care about cliches. Be a student of the game. Just truly be a student of the game. That's what it's all about.
Dave?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, cherish the job. Learn everything you can about the job. Don't just try to blast through the ranks. I mean, even if you're looking at people in your recruit class or whatever that are getting promoted to lieutenant or whatever, if they're moving up too fast, they're going to struggle. But you'll find that your path will be a lot easier if you just learn each position and what the fire department has to offer, and learn from your officers. Learn from your mentors. Learn from the people that come through your station. Absorb all you can, and then when you're ready to promote, talk to your captain. Say, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking the lieutenant's test. What do you think?" And hopefully that guy's been, keeping an eye on his shift. He can give you that honest feedback. What things do I need to work on so I can be a better lieutenant or better captain? So don't blast through the ranks. Enjoy each position. Like I said, best job in the world, hands down. and you're going to come out on the other end a lot better for it and more well respected, I think.
And mine, I have three, and this is what I will leave people with. The first one kind of matches up to what Sam's saying. Invest in yourself. If you want to be a leader, invest in yourself. As much as we joke, right? All of these people want to teach leadership conferences and classes. I'm sure there's a lot of great things to be taken out of it, right? But invest in yourself. Go to these conferences. Go to FDIC. Go to these smaller conferences. Look at some of these officers and chiefs who are teaching these things and take knowledge from them. There's so much to be shared. There's so much to be learned. And, each story that somebody shares, you could probably relate to something that you have in your department. You might have to change an object or a place. But for the most part, invest in yourself. When you start investing in yourself, then you can take that information, those experiences, start learning off of that and investing in other people. I think that is the biggest thing you can do to start investing in yourself and start being able to invest in other people. Take time to build yourself and build your name. People will never respect you if you don't have any credibility behind your name. If you don't take the time to do the right things, be the person who's training, be the person who's learning, be the person who's stepping up in the firehouse, all of those little things build street cred. And street cred, just like anything else outside of the fire service, your street cred means a lot to everybody. If you don't have any street cred, people aren't going to respect you. And that's just the rules of the street, right? But, doing those things, doing the little things, building a good name for yourself so that, people know that you're the guy or the girl that they can call on and be the one. And my last thing I'll say is one of my pieces of advice to aspiring leaders is do the right thing. Do the right thing for not only yourself or people. Sometimes standing in front of a bad situation and being the person who's the voice that stands up for the other people, that's the right thing. Sometimes I find myself in that situation, right? Do I want to make a wave about this? Do I not want to make a wave about this? And I have to ask myself, what's the right thing, right? What do the people, what do my guys, what do they need? What's the right thing for them? And when I ask myself that question, I end up saying, this is the right thing. Not every battle is one that has to be fought, but sometimes, standing in front of things and doing the right thing is all good traits of a good leader. And those are my three things that I think I would give advice to aspiring leaders. I don't know. I mean, you guys, I think we hit a pretty broad topic, but narrowed it down to some really cool things that I think new and aspiring leaders needed to hear. And Dave, thanks for letting me drive the show tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Anytime you want to do it is fine with me.
All right, Dave, do your thing. Finish it off.
All right, fellas. Again, another great show. There's nothing. It's not work when you're doing stuff with your buddies. At the end of the day, we've known each other for so long. We know each other so well. We know what each other are going to say. I'm taking notes, and then as Sam's talking, I'm scratching shit off because he's already saying it.
I love
but
it.
we all have the like minds. But anyway. Until next month, fellas. Well, actually, tomorrow, RJ, and probably in the very, very near future, Sam, I'll come down for a visit. Peace.